Ted Cruz of Texas. Senator, you're one of the smartest lawyers and best students of Alan Dershowitz. You know election law. You're allowed to have partisan observers. They're not being denied they're being denied access. What does that tell you, and what is the remedy, sir?
Well, Sean, what we're saying tonight, what we've been saying the last 3 days is outrageous. It is partisan, it is political, and it is lawless. And we're seeing this pattern in Democratic city after Democratic city, but the worst in the country right now is Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, where they're not allowing the election observers in, despite clear state law that requires election observers being there, despite an order from a state judge saying election observers have to be within 6 feet of the ballot counting. They're just ignoring the law. They're defying the law. And there's a reason they're doing that. There's a reason they're defying the law. The reason you don't want observers there is because you're doing something you don't want to be observed. And I am angry, and I think the American people are angry, because by throwing the observers out, by clouding the vote counting in a shroud of darkness, they are setting the stage to potentially steal an election, not just from the president, but from the over 60 million people across this country who voted for him all across this country. It is lawless, and they need to follow the law.
I mean, it really is that simple. How are Americans ever to have, and whatever way the election comes out, I'm for free, fair, open elections. You know, we're the home of Microsoft and Silicon Valley and Microsoft. Do you think that we could come up with a better system than this system, with last-minute millions of ballots being sent out and then no observers of the count when the law requires it? Now, tell me legally, how does this play out? Is it the state legislatures? Is it the U.S. Supreme Court? Who will make that ultimate determination with the law being violated? The law wasn't followed.
So it's all of the above. We may well see the state legislatures get involved. We've seen the state courts. We may see the federal courts. We may ultimately see the U.S. Supreme Court. The standard should be that we should be following the law. We should be following the Constitution. We should be following federal law. We should be following state law.
It's not happening, Senator. It's not happening. That's the point.
And so, look, in my view, we need the Department of Justice in there to enforce the law, and we need public scrutiny. The media is acting as an apologist for what's going on here. Sean, how come it's just the big Democratic cities that can't seem to figure out how to count a damn vote? You know, the state of Texas counted over 11 million votes, and we got it done, and we got it completed. And yet Philadelphia, and yet Detroit, and yet Las Vegas, they sit in a darkened room. In Detroit, they covered up the windows so no one could look at them. And it is only the hard Democratic cities where they know what the total is, that they got to get the votes, that they got to try to beat the president, and they don't want anyone watching them. It is outrageous. I talked with the president this afternoon, Sean, and I'll tell you, the president is angry, and I'm angry, and the voters ought to be angry. And if the media had a shred of integrity, they should be angry, too, that there's no transparency. This is happening under the cloak of darkness with their apologizing for it. But, you know, I am more than a little frustrated that every time they close the doors and shut out the lights, they always find more Democratic votes. It's, you know, 20 years ago, we had Bush versus Gore, the recount, and I was part of George W. Bush's legal team. And we saw that pattern. Every time there was a recount, somehow magically there were more Gore votes and more Gore votes and more Gore votes. It was always the Democrats that would keep on finding votes. There we had the Chads. And it was our belief that they were just sitting there poking out new Chads with their fingernails, that they were willing to steal the election. The answer really is don't give them the opportunity to steal the election. If you have
Senator, it's the ship has sailed. At 3 o'clock this afternoon, I began my radio show, and Donald Trump had, I'm looking right now in Pennsylvania, he had over 108, almost 109,000 vote lead. It's now 42,185. That's in 6 hours and 42 minutes.
Well, and the state attorney general has been very candid. He said that they intend to keep going until Joe Biden wins. I mean, it is unfortunately a partisan operation. And, you know, at a time when so many people distrust the process, distrust our democratic system, refusing to allow transparency. Let me give you an example. If someone goes in, say, to a bank and cuts off the security system and cuts off the cameras, is it because they just intend to deposit a check? Or is it because they intend to break the law? Well, when these guys, when these partisan operatives throw the observers out, the natural inference, which any court of law would take, the natural inference, if you don't want anyone seeing what you're doing, is that you intend to break the law. And the consequences here aren't just a Philadelphia City Council election, but it is the presidency of the United States. And it is ridiculous that this is occurring right now.
Daniel Horowitz, I'll put it up on Hannity.com, has a great piece out today. You know, who determines the outcome on any given state? And he says, he says, president wins a state, the electors selected by the state legislatures. Thus, ultimately, according to the Constitution, they wind up serving as the kingmakers. And so there's a lot of power there, like in a state like Pennsylvania, where it's a Republican legislature.
Look, that's exactly right. Now, that's a big cannon to use. I can tell you during Bush versus Gore, we were having very explicit conversations about that as we were seeing an effort to steal that election. The answer that I want to see, the outcome I want to see, is to count every vote that was legally cast and
Senator,
for the president to win.
How do you go back and do that when it wasn't observed when they were counting the votes? Did they change any?
It is, well, we still have, the president still has a 42,000 vote lead right now in Pennsylvania. Yeah, we need to get observers in there now, not an hour from now, not 2 hours from now, Senator, right now.
I would bet you that ship has sailed and any shenanigans have already been done. That would be my best guess. We didn't have observers in there as a matter of law. They weren't allowed. All right, Senator, we got to run, but thank you.